Hi, this is George Shouchuk here for White Post Studio, and I have the pleasure of being with Dr. William Brennan and the person that introduced us, which is my dear friend Vasil Krasnobrizhy. We're all here in Eastern Pennsylvania right now, and we want to talk to Dr. Brennan about some of the things that he has, insights that might be of interest to you folks.
Very good. Yes, I'm Dr. William Brennan. My specialty is foot reflexology. Over the years I've studied with many people, also herbology, magnetics, hypnosis, and so on. And also medical doctors, neurologists, worked for the military, and for 2-3 years I worked in Germany with the military in pediatrics. And have enjoyed helping people for many years, mainly out of the fact that I couldn't find a doctor to help my family, who was very ill at the time with cancer and many other problems, psoriasis, problems you can't even imagine. So I became a doctor by accident, and then was inducted into medical reflexology. Our university is the Rainer Ward International Institute for Reflexology.
That was in Germany?
That was right here in Eastern Pennsylvania. She's amazing. She started her own practice, and then university became a university, and then a part of the medical tradition in America and world. No matter where I go, I'm accepted as a doctor. That's unusual, because usually you have to have a medical degree from Germany to practice in Germany, and I didn't need that. So I practiced in Germany, in my little village of Breitenbach, or Bradamich, from you. In Bradamich, if you hear me, you'll recognize the dialect. So yes, I enjoyed many years practicing medicine there, and also teaching fine art.
Yeah, I know that Dr. Brennan is a very accomplished artist, and perhaps we will get into that more deeply and some of his works at a future video. But I wanted to ask you, what were the type of problems that people would come to you with that you were able to deliver the kind of maximum benefit for?
Well, one of the most important today, in my way of thinking, is autism, as it is growing here in Pennsylvania and the United States dramatically. It used to be 1 out of 1,000 had autism back in the 1800s, and then 1900s it started to grow until today in Pennsylvania. 1 in 56, 1 in 45 have autism. And so I found the cure. I actually don't remember where I found it, what professor told me about it, what books I found it from, but it's...
Excuse me, before you get into the cure, could you give us an insight of where does this come from?
Vaccines.
Oh, wow. Oh, I'm sorry.
They claim that mercury and lead in vaccines that we received in 1800s, 1900s, the 20th century, and now even in the 21st century, which still contained mercury, preserved the vaccine. Now they use freezing. Now they found out you don't need to freeze it. Well, it's very iffy why they even needed to preserve anything quite that way, since the vaccine was more or less a disease in a smaller degree, which is then given to you and makes you react, and in a smaller way, so that you won't get the disease later. You develop antibodies, and you don't need to suffer through a complete, how do you say that, an influenza that kills you, or a COVID-19 that kills you, or a meningitis that kills you and are killing people today. So that's the main reason. This mercury, which was put in the teeth, along with lead, led to diseases that I had, can cause seizures, can cause blackouts, can cause autism. can cause retardation, they say. Fortunately, it does not cause retardation, not permanently. You can alleviate that by the remedy. And the remedy was given to me, personally, by my grandmother.
Wow.
She worked as an...
I'm sorry to interrupt again, but I wanted to tell the folks that Dr. Brennan has a background and a genetic heritage from American Indians.
Oh, yes.
And when he mentioned his grandmother, I'm sure that was a factor, and maybe he could expand on that a little bit.
Not so, really. She was the daughter of an Irish immigrant. So, no, she was not. But my other grandmother, she was Native American.
I see.
And my grandfather, great-great-great-grandfather, was, we think, Shawnee Lenape, or Lenape. Le is French for the rabbit. The Napo, they took their name from Noah, believe it or not, and the actual name of Noah in their dialect in this eastern Pennsylvania is Nanapush. However, I looked into it and it was probably Nanoapo. Napo. Nanoapo. You hear both Noah and Napo in that word. That word is still used where Noah landed in Armenia on Mount Ararat. They say Noi. We say Noah. And he landed on that rock called Mount Ararat, which is 17,000 feet above sea level.
May I interject? We spoke off camera about something that I think relates to this possibly. And remember I told you that during the time of King David, the Israelites actually had people here in the New World mining copper.
Yes.
And this has been well established that there are ancient copper mines, and there's a strong possibility or even probability there was Israelites that were involved.
And Egyptians.
And the thought occurred to me that while these Israelites were here, they probably had relations with the domestic people, and probably the domestic people picked up on a lot of Israelite religion, background, and maybe even language, maybe to some extent.
Maybe that's where we have our information, but I'll tell you, as a history keeper for the Napo Indians, I taught the old stories. I kept the old stories in my mind because we don't write these stories down per se. We keep these stories perpetuated almost word for word. At least the story,
the oral
basics,
tradition.
Yeah, the oral tradition is kept till this day by the survivors of these people here in eastern Pennsylvania. This was, by the way, the capital of the Napo or Algonquian people, the Six Nations, Lenape we call them, and it was called Lenapehoking. But anyway, to come back to autism, would you like to know the cure?
Yes, by all means. That's why we're here.
My grandmother worked in Hotel Easton. Most of the presidents of the United States, Eisenhower, Truman, came there. She knew them all. They all knew her by name, Sabina Brennan. And she loved good food, and she loved whipped cream.
This is really going to be hard for our audience to swallow.
It's actually not a swallow. It's a wonderful remedy.
I mean, they're going to love to eat whipped cream, but I don't know if they're going to swallow that it's curing them for anything.
Well, I'll explain why it works.
Okay.
So, over my years, I studied the reason for my improvements, because in school I was a flop. I was no good in school. I failed 3 basic years in school, from illnesses to who knows what. I wouldn't learn to read. I refused to learn to read. I said, this language, this English language is broken. Why are you spelling it dumb when it's dumba? So, dumba, whatever. I was dumb. I couldn't learn. So, after taking her cures in the middle school, junior high school.
You're not talking about the whipped cream, are you?
No. Well, I would go to lunch because she lived next to the middle school. I went to her for lunch. She was a retired grandmother by that time, a nice lady who gave me whipped cream on nice homemade cakes and pies. And I started to improve. I also moved my bedroom, which is another story, which helped me perhaps stay out of some radioactive things that were in my old bedroom. It was too small, too cramped. And so my brother and I had a bigger bedroom later. I started to improve, but I kept eating that white whipped cream, and I started to become an A student. And ended up being requested to go to college. And
I would imagine that a lot of people watching are probably, going radiation in your room. Are you talking about maybe some, like a transmitter or transistor but near your home or something like that?
Could be, yes. Yeah. We had high frequency lines. They still run right up the street here, but it wasn't close enough. No, they work what you call a curry. They're 70 centimeter apart. A curries run 70 centimeters apart.
What is that curry?
Manfred Curry photographed them. And you can actually see the aura. He photographed auras.
And where did they come from?
And the radiation. It comes, it comes out of the earth.
Oh, you mean like we used to, when I worked in real estate, we used to have little,
divining rod?
No, they were like little meters to...
This?
That's right.
Ley lines.
Ley lines, that's the word I'm searching for.
On the other side of the planet, they call the dragon lines.
Dragon lines, that's
where they
great.
cross, that's where all the main altars are located in various parts of the world. The cathedrals are that.
Yes.
There's a lot of history
Water
there. Lots
lines.
of history there.
Are these things measurable?
Yes, they're measurable. With devices like you're probably talking about that you used to work with.
That had to do with this radiation coming out of the ground. They had a special name for it. I forgot what it was. And it was a lot of people.
Magnetics,
yeah. Radiation.
It might come to me later, but I don't remember the name of it right now. But it was a big concern for a lot of people.
I slept with one over my forehead when I was in grammar school, and I couldn't learn because of it. And so later I became a diviner with an old Herr, we say, alter Hase from Germany. He would go to different houses and put people's beds in the correct places, including his wife, if she would listen. She would move it back if she found out. But he would always move it a little bit so that she'd be safe. And he would put copper rings under the bed and wash those rings every 2 weeks. And that would collect in the copper ring instead of in your feet or your head. And even if you couldn't get out of those ley lines or these other lines that are even worse, which are the curries, named after Manfred Curry, you could survive. But otherwise they could cause cancer, disabilities of awakeness, they could cause you to be retarded, they could cause all kinds of problems. Also cause you to have cerebral palsy. If the mother put her head in one while she was giving birth, that would cause the umbilical cord for some reason to wrap around the fetus or the baby being born and strangulate the child, causing not autism but cerebral palsy.
Lack of air.
Which is the cerebellum is affected. Burnt proteins collect there in those few moments of birth, and they cannot be got rid of unless you have an antidote such as lobelia. Lobelia is another fantastic cure. You want to talk about cancer? It's been cured for thousands of years. No one wants to talk about it.
Is that an herb?
Cancer?
No, lobelia.
Lobelia is an herb. It grows about a meter high. Has one flower at the top, usually red. I've heard that some are blue. I only saw the red version. And the leaves grow, how would you call it? If you look down on them, it would be an X coming up the plant. Like the backbone. Like the sort of vertebrae in your back. And I saw the plant in nature and I said, oh, that must be for the brain. That would help a neurologist or someone with a problem in